Shh. Don't tell anyone. Don't tell them what? Don't tell them that we're going off-world, where we talk about crazy things that don't include He-Man, because the world is bigger than Eternia. This week, we will be talking about Thor, Love, and Thunder. Good, bad, decent, enough jokes. We'll let you know.
Yeah, but I'm already wearing you down.
Jesse, are you married, single, gay? What's up?
Hard-hitting question.
That's a fair question. No, I am single and straight.
Okay, decent. Okay.
Bi-curious. All right.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Oh shit. Oh, good times. How's that burger, Matt? What'd you end up getting?
I just go standard this late at night.
Yeah. You went with fries though, so that's disappointing. They have those awesome cheese curds in there.
Yeah, you got to get the cheese curds, man.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
It goes right to your hips, bro.
That worth it.
Nothing else is going there.
Worth it. All right, welcome guys to another great installment of Legends of Grayskull presents OffWorld. Tonight, we are
I don't know. It's a spooky ghost.
Really off-world in the Scooby-Doo universe, apparently. No, not Scooby-Doo. We are doing Thor, Love, and Thunder tonight. I'm joined, as always, with Shawn Scavarna. Shawn, how we doing?
Pretty good. Can't complain.
Below me, we have the wonderful, magnificent, flowing flocks of Jesse Arnold. Did I say flocked? Because you did that damn just shelve it earlier. So I got flock on the brain.
He's flocked with locks.
Flocked for her pleasure.
Flocked.
I love that face.
You got douche. There you go.
You got douche. Boom!
You got douche all over your face.
Are you live right now?
Over in the corner, from the wilds of Michigan, snacking on some Culvers, we have the wonderful, indescribable, unimitatable Matthew Rodriguez. Matthew, how are you tonight?
Hey, I was on here a few episodes ago. Who's that Tarzan-looking dude?
That's your new best friend, Jesse. You guys are gonna get along great.
I tell you what, normally when people say that type of stuff, it irks me because I feel like they're trying to say they know me better than I know myself. But then I've been chatting with Jesse a little bit, and I'm like, son of a gun, I like this guy.
I knew you would. Everybody likes Jesse.
He is a likable sort.
Until I'm not.
So we actually... My wife and I were out the other night. Well, long story short, kind of. My daughter's out working in the yard, right? And this dog comes walking up to her. Lovable little... I say puppy, but he's going to be a big dog. But you can tell by his behavior he's a puppy, you know. But, so... Anyways, they bring the dog in and everything. We can't find... No one claims it off Facebook or whatever. Like, we don't even have a fence around our yard. So, like, we can't keep a dog, even, like, overnight. Like, so, we go to drop it off at the local shelter. And they're supposed to have, like, an emergency drop after hours. Like, kettle's out back and you call a number and let them know that he's there, everything. But apparently people have been abusing it. So they have them all locked up all the time now. But so we're getting back in the car to figure out something else to do with this dog. And my wife hears this meowing from this shed that's like across a field. So she goes, I said it was fine. She goes to investigate. out, and out pops this tiny little,
Oh my god.
maybe 4-week-old kitten who just clawed his way up my leg, which is why I started telling this story.
Whoa.
So you got a dog and a cat in the same night?
No, we did not keep the dog. We cannot keep a dog. We did end up keeping the cat, though. But also it kind of ties into YouTube because it's like we have 2 cats already who are just about a year old, and they were very hesitant at first that this little guy would be a friend. So it kind of reminded me of Matt and Jesse. Like, Matt's kind of like the older cat, and he's like, no, what's that little thing doing? And then Jesse just comes in, all cute, and he's like, hi. And
I've been around the block.
Yep.
I used to be an alley cat. I used to roam the streets, get my milk whenever I wanted from wherever I wanted. I used to jump far. I used to be thin. And I got married, and now I'm a house cat.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Didn't you get married at like 16?
Feels like it. Feels like it.
No, you guys have been together since like high school, haven't you? Pretty long time?
No, we made out in high school.
Okay. Doesn't count.
One time. I was a senior and she was a sophomore, and she needed a ride home, and I was like, we're obviously going to stop at the old hospital parking lot.
Absolutely.
And then years later, we all of a sudden, I'm like, who's this chick trying to talk to me on Facebook or MySpace? On MySpace.
I was gonna say, when about Facebook?
Yeah, MySpace back then, and then I was like, hey, what's going on? You know, and we reconnected and hit it off. But yeah, we technically had the first makeout session when I was in high school, and she actually, fun fact, she had a note telling me how much she liked me when I was a senior, and she was trying to walk towards me in the hallway the next day with this note, and I was standing there talking to some other girl, so she threw it in the trash can. Never got it.
I really want to hear that story from Rachel's perspective now.
That would be interesting. It's like a multiverse thing, you know? Yeah. There's some multiverse where, like, we hooked up, like, we actually, like, she gave me the note, and then we, like, got married at 16, and then we got divorced at, like, 22. You know what I mean? Like, there's a whole different...
I was going to go down the same route, actually, maybe, you know, because me and my wife talk about that all the time, because we didn't meet till we were in our 20s working at the same grocery store, and it's like, we talk about our high school days, and I'm like, we totally would not have, like, ever wound up in the same circles, let alone got along. Right. Like, if we'd met any earlier than we did, it wouldn't have happened, but...
Right.
It was meant to be.
Love's funny like that.
Absolutely. So speaking of love, we've all seen Thor: Love and Thunder, right?
Oh, it's almost like you planned that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Heavily scripted.
I'm sleeveless for this episode.
All right.
That one's love, the other one's thunder. Yeah, there you go.
So, guys, this is going to be a little bit of a different off-world. We're cutting out all the other segments because I think Love and Thunder alone is going to be enough. So if you like State of the Stores and Never Have I Ever, come back next episode, maybe. Who knows? But I think this one's going to be all Marvel, all Thor, Love and Thunder. Because I think not only is Love and Thunder a very divisive movie, but I think it opens up a bigger discussion. Pretty much, what are we in now? Phase 4?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, this one, you know, I've complained about not having feeling like I have a clear picture of where Phase 4 is going. I think this one really kind of opened the doors to where I've got a bit better grasp of it. Or I think I do. Marvel's tricked me before. So real quick here, go round the clock here, starting with Shawn. What were your expectations going into this?
None. the Thor movies as a single character movie usually are not the must-see events compared to other Marvel characters. So this one, I think the main thing for me was I was very curious to see what would happen with him joining the Guardians at the end of Endgame. And I was like, oh, and obviously they're in the trailer. So let's see how that plays out. But that was about the extent of anything for me.
Fair enough. Matthew, if you're safe to talk, we'll go with you next if you need to finish your Michigan turn.
I'm just going across the street. We're going to go in the Walmart parking lot.
All right.
Little tour.
Changing a little bit of a scenery. I'm taking you guys on a little ride.
Yeah.
He's literally driving OffWorld right now.
What was the question? Thor, Love and Thunder.
Your expectations going into the theater.
Well, I think that Ragnarok really kind of like set Thor apart as far as all these individual movies. They have done a good job kind of having their own flavor, let's say. So, Captain Civil War, like that type of stuff, definitely has kind of that spy thriller stuff going on. They all have their own little bit different flavors, same meal, different flavors. And so when Ragnarok came out, it seemed like all of a sudden they like found a new recipe, and they were like, "Holy crap! Like this definitely could be. People want to laugh, people want to have fun, people don't mind bright lights." And so when it comes down to that type of stuff, I definitely think that. Hey guys, I definitely think that like the anticipation of that they were like kind of accepting this colorful world got me a little bit more hyped for this movie compared to some of the others, Black Widow and some of the other ones that have come along where and Chris Hemsworth too. I mean he's become a staple, and so I was excited. I mean, and I enjoyed it, but I was excited.
All right, Jesse.
I was expecting it to be more like Matt was saying, more in line with Ragnarok. That was my expectation. I knew it was going to be funny. It was going to have some good moments. I did think it was a little strange, some of the plot lines they chose to put in the trailer, just because I know the comics and the movies are their own separate things, but I was just like, wow, they're going to cram those two stories in here. All right, let's see how that plays out. That could work. But I was excited, especially coming off the last movie that I did not like at all. I had my hopes really set high.
Ragnarok? You didn't like Ragnarok?
No.
He means Doctor Strange. Yeah.
The chronological. I thought you meant out of Thor's movies.
No. Like
Ragnarok
theatrical
was a gem.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't say I had any really big expectations, but I did thoroughly enjoy Ragnarok. Surprised me very much how much I liked it. It was one of those I waited till it was out streaming or DVD or whatever, and like I just popped it in on one day when I had nothing else to do, and I was like blown away. And sometimes I think that's a part of it going into these movies. Like you get me a Spider-Man where I'm heavily invested, and I've got so much anticipation tied up in it where it's actually more likely to disappoint me. Whereas you get like a Thor that I've never followed besides like, he does show up here or there. It's that clean slate for me. So I can, it's more likely that I can just enjoy it even if they deviate greatly. But yeah, after the first two Thor movies, Ragnarok blew my socks off, and I will say I was excited to see this, but I also didn't seek out any trailers. I still don't think I've ever watched the trailer for Love and Thunder. Like, I just showed up to the theater and got on the ride, so. But I also enjoyed Doctor Strange as well, so maybe I have no taste.
You what?
I said, so maybe I have no taste. I will get.
Well, I mean, you have taste. I mean, I think
No, I
Jesse's
know.
just saying that.
I'm
Like,
just teasing him.
some of us like fancier meals than you.
Yeah. So, I'm going to get one big dislike out of the way right away here. All right, and I know we were all thinking it. It's a scene. Spoilers, guys. Obviously, we're doing a review. There's going to be spoilers. So, but like, early scene just bugged the crap out of me. I know we were all sitting there thinking about it. So when Jane's in the hospital and Darcy comes and visits her, right? And she brings, the Lay's potato chips and the Flamin' Hot Cheetos. And by God, those chips, every time they flash back to Darcy, they move places on the table. I know, it was hard to watch for all of us. But
I caught it, but it did.
okay, he caught it too, huh?
You'd think after a decade they'd clean their act up. Is
Right.
what I'm saying.
Right. Come on. Who's manning the set that day? I mean, first you got the kettle cooked on the right, then it's on the left. It was a mess. Sun chips were all over the place. But
I did not pick up on that at all.
yeah, no, it's what
Darcy was in this.
Isn't that her name?
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I don't. I did not pick up on the chips at all.
Yeah.
I didn't pick up on the chips, but we'll continue with that scene.
Yeah, go ahead.
That scene just seemed to be so misplaced, in my opinion. Like, so it's that thing, and we've talked about it definitely before. But like the whole the reveal to the audience and then the reveal within the world. They obviously tried to use this as a, hey, audience, we're going to clue you in so that you get to watch us reveal it to Thor later. Where, and again, I don't know if I was talking to Jesse or who I was talking about when or if it was all of you guys, but it seemed like that thing where, I would have loved for that first scene of her, I think, in the a hotel room or something on New Asgard, where she takes off her helmet and we see how jacked up she is. I would have liked that to be revealed to us in that way instead of how it was in the movie.
I have to agree, actually. Taking it there. Honestly, I think it would have been better to find out with Thor at the end of the movie as well. It was really weird because they played it up for the first scene there when Thor, winds up on New Asgard, and they play it up who is this? Who could this be? And then it's just oh, it's Jane. Right away, it's even that I thought could have taken a beat or two. So yeah, there definitely some pacing issues in there, and the reveals did not hit as hard. Bless you.
All the pacing. The pacing.
No, Jesse, you follow Thor comic books and the Mighty Thor a little bit. You're a little bit deeper in that side of the lore.
Yeah, I read the comics through all of Jason Aaron's run up until he went to Avengers, and I think Donny Cates took over the comics.
Okay, so basically, when you mention the writer of the comic book, you're just proving that you're smarter than the three of us.
Yes, that's why we have him on here.
So as far as, like you said, both storylines, how did those elements? I guess how were those? Those are two different storylines. The God Butcher and Mighty Thor. Did they represent well? I mean, obviously we all agree it was a little bit, crammed. But as far as just the story went, is that kind of how they both follow?
No, I would say no. They did not. I mean, there were elements I think that they got pretty good, but overall, I think as far as being a good representation. I mean, then again, you could technically say Civil War was not a good representation of that comic. No, it's still a great movie, but it's not a good,
the translation of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I don't feel like this movie did either of those stories justice.
It's kind of hard too, because just throwing it out there, because like even me, I've not read a modern Thor comic, but I knew Jane Foster became the Mighty Thor. I knew she had cancer. You know, I don't know if she died in that run. I don't know that, but like, I guess it's kind of hard to have those reveals when you figure at least half your audience already knows the basics there, right? Like, how do you... So if you drag that out... I'm assuming that's what they're thinking. If you drag it out too long, then all the guys that know how the story goes are sitting there like, come on, this is stupid. Why can't he figure it out, you know? It's kind of tough because that... Jane Foster becoming Thor was a huge story back when it happened, you know? Everyone talked about it. More people talked about it than actually read the comic.
That's probably true.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
because Thor's a guy's name, dude.
Well, I heard people on the radio, because some of the people I work with listen to talk radio all day long, and some of them were complaining that, like, well, Thor's a girl now. Like, how can you turn Thor into a girl? Like, I think they literally thought, in context of what they were saying, that they turned Thor, Odin's son, into a female character. And I'm like, that's not...
No.
And so what they did it to Loki a couple of years before, when Loki was in Sif's body for a long time and no one knew who she was. I mean, but whatever. Like, yeah, more people. I heard more people talking about that at the time than most other comics that weren't reading comics.
So real quick,
wait. So you're trying to tell me that there are people that talk about stuff, and the stuff they're talking about, they don't actually know about it?
Right.
That's super weird.
Yeah, it's probably the first time that's ever happened.
I'm not touching that. I mean, yes, 100%.
That's just so odd. Now, Thor, I have to ask you, since you read the runs, I mean, a lot of this stuff was campy and like went overboard, and we all can agree on that. But the element of Thor telling his hammer to take care of Jane, is that from the comic, or was that made up for the movie?
I think that was made up for that was one of the few things I actually really appreciated in the movie.
I really like that scene, actually, when they like give a justification for it, and
I thought that was a really cool element. Yeah. Just the whole, like, even if it's tongue in cheek at the time, but that his hammer like has its own spirit. Like, I definitely like that element of that because obviously when it broke and like we're like, oh, we're never gonna get this hammer again because it's like it's gone. But the fact that they made it its own character early on, like, I don't know, I like that element.
And it's kind of like how Odin, you know, enchanted it so that Thor could only hold it when he's worthy. You know, it's kind of like Thor put another enchantment on it, you know, really embracing his lineage too, which is really important in the time that this is set in, you know, where Thor is struggling with who he is, where he belongs, and to kind of bring it back like that. And
because story-wise, they couldn't do what they did in the comics because the way Jane gets the hammer in the comics is someone walks up to Thor at the end of the... I can't remember if it was the end or the beginning of the story, Original Sin, which was also by Jason Aaron, and is Nick Fury, I think, whispers in Thor's ear. And you don't learn for the longest time what he says. I think he just... I don't remember. It's something about, like, are you sure you're worthy, or is like you're not worthy, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And the hammer falls out of his hand on the moon. Like, he can't pick it up anymore. And then at the end of the story arc, you see a female hand pick it up. You don't know who it is. So you couldn't really do the unworthy thing because they kind of already did that in the first Thor movie. Right. So I really liked... I wish they would have done their whole, like, relationship breakup sequence a little bit different, where it was more Jane intentionally pushing Thor away because she knew she had cancer. I feel like that would have been a little bit more dramatic, but they didn't go for any drama in this movie.
No, but I
And-
also kind of found it a little bit more realistic. Like they just kind of drifted. I mean, it happens.
It worked. It
Yeah.
did work. I just, with that storyline for her, it just seemed like
Yeah.
a missed opportunity. So no, Mjolnir was not with, like, he didn't do that in the comic. She picked it up because she was worthy,
Right.
and becomes the mighty Thor.
And Shard's Mjolnir,
Oh,
new for the movie or in the comic?
No, the hammer was broken in what was it? Where everybody had like the Tron suits, I think. It got fractured. A chip of it got broken out. Or was that an Ultimate storyline? But in the comics, it was intact when she picked it up.
Okay.
I love
that. Like,
I love that
power
attack.
element was an addition. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, I love the way the hammer worked in the movie. And I loved how jealous Stormbreaker was. I think
you
they
like
overdid
that?
a little bit.
Okay.
I think they overdid it, but I liked it.
I think by you saying they overdid it, but I liked it, is literally the tagline of this movie.
I could say,
Everything for
Yes.
me, like literally every element of this movie, like they overdid it. I enjoyed it. Like there's this sweet spot where the phrase that I used the other day was, and I'll definitely I need to trademark this, but it's that you can be a director that makes a movie for people. Are you finding the cat? Did you lose your cat already?
nah, just making sure the older cat was being nice. She is.
Okay.
We're good.
Hey, they gotta show them the ropes, A little light hazing. But there's directors that you make a movie for people to enjoy,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's where he was at with Ragnarok, and this was a movie for him. Like, I fully think that he enjoyed this movie too much himself as a director. Like, he was making the movie he wanted to watch, and I think that this shows, because he did Ragnarok, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. That was
And
his first one.
and that was him being tame and being tamed, and it's like you can see, like, yes, he's inserting some of his likes into it, but he's letting it be for the audience. This, I felt like any chance there was I think this would be super funny if we blah 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 blah. I think
Every scene of the movie.
every
Yeah.
opportunity of that he took to make himself laugh, which
Well, I think it could also be like so Thor did all right. Dark World pretty much panned. Most people have it, if not last, pretty low in their Marvel movies. And then Taika Waititi comes along for Ragnarok. So you got to imagine the execs are pretty kind of like, look, we like that you're bringing your vision, but like they're reining him in, right? Like they're still like, now come on, like,
he's still being tested. He's still like,
right. And then Ragnarok makes all the money. Everybody loves it, and they're like, all right, hey, we're wrong, do it. And they're just like over there counting their stacks of cash, and he's just like, here we go. Now we got it. So I think that's probably a big part of it too. I liked, same as Jesse pretty much, I liked the first couple scenes between Stormbreaker and Mjolnir were like, oh, okay. But then, like, by the time we're getting into, like, the God Butcher and chasing the kids and all that, it's like, all right, now we need to, like, start getting this a little bit more serious. I think that's the thing. It never really got to the seriousness of the situation. We just kind of stayed in the more, honestly, Guardians of the Galaxy, goofiness, and stakes, where we're having dance battles and stuff. Shawn, hit us with something. You gotta just jump in, buddy.
Yeah, I know. I'm slow on the draw tonight. Well, I just looked it up. Ragnarok was written by 3 different people. I think some of which already did Marvel. Screenplay by Eric Pearson. Writing team of Craig, Kyle, Christopher Yost. And I think Christopher Yost also did some other stuff with Marvel on top of that. But it's like the team for that one, Taika took their story and made it a movie.
Right.
This time around, you have Taika going, I want to do both sides of it. I want to have writing time and directing it. And I felt like it was an overdose of him through the movie. And I know I've talked to other people where they're complaining about how characters didn't feel like the characters. And part of the problem with that, and I pointed that out actually to somebody that we know, Steve, and he was complaining that the Guardians were goofballs. They didn't feel anything like the Guardians in the previous movies. And then it was like, oh, well, Thor's the only thing that can save us because we're all pinned down and we're going to die and all this other stuff. And then Thor comes in and just rips the crap out of everything to save the day. And I'm like, but you... What?
Go ahead. I think I was about to say what you're about to say.
You do realize that the movie is bookended by Korg, who's sitting around talking to children and basically coming up with tall tales about Thor, because Thor is his bestest buddy ever, and he's going to put him in the greatest light ever because that's the guy he's adventuring with all the time.
Right. Why would he make Star-Lord the hero of the new Asgardian folklore? In
the same way, the best comparison that I can make as of right now is they made the Lone Ranger movie a bunch of years back with Johnny Depp as Tonto, and the whole movie played the Lone Ranger as an idiot. And it's like, because the story's told by Tonto, who does know more than the Lone Ranger when it comes to certain skill sets, because the Lone Ranger is still learning. And he's already this, like Native American warrior out there doing his thing. So he's going to play up the Lone Ranger as more of a fool, and he's the one saving him constantly. And that's his tall tale. Korg is going to talk up Thor the best way he can. So that's part of the problem for me with the movie is I felt like most of this was a giant tall tale, and you couldn't really invest in making it serious, which makes it kind of depressing because we've seen Thor in the first movie, and that played it very seriously and straight. Same with Dark World. The Avengers movies played him, where he was basically the powerhouse right there with Hulk on the Avengers team. He was the one that beheaded Thanos and everything. He was the one that wanted to kill Thanos. And when he shows up in Infinity War, the crowd went nuts because they knew with Thor coming in, now we're getting to business and everything. And even though they took that turn with him getting fat, it's like, well, okay, fine. I actually appreciated that from a depression standpoint, watching that going, I know how that feels. You're digging in deep into the darkness and the negativity. You're trying to hide away, and you're doing things to self-medicate yourself. I completely get it. This movie, obviously Ragnarok's there, and Ragnarok started making that shift where he's a powerhouse, yet he's a little more comedic and more of like a, himbo at times, depending on the situation. But they didn't play it nearly as to the umpteenth power the way this movie did. And some of it was the storytelling conventions they were using. And it would be confusing for people. If you don't remember that, you are going to go, well, why is Star-Lord hoping that Thor saves everybody here? That makes no sense. Star-Lord wouldn't be that guy,
Yeah. And I like the fact that they limited the Guardians part of Thor's adventure to that. Because imagine this movie, and then we have to have like a third of it with him with the Guardians too. Like, I like that they just kind of like, here's Korg's story, here's what happened, he's grown, he's found himself again, he's back in shape, I like that passage of time there. And real quick, just throwing it out there, especially to Shawn and Matt, watching that opening sequence in the battle with Thor versus all those weird alien creatures.
Mm-hmm. The Muppets?
Yeah. But how the hell do we not have a Masters of the Universe movie yet? Those freaking Muppets are riding those giant, tank, tread, horde-looking vehicles, laser fire, Thor with a freaking axe. How the hell do we not have a He-Man movie off the ground yet?
I said it the other night. We were watching Shang-Chi, and in that movie, Shang-Chi's flying on a dragon. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I said it to my daughter. I'm like, I can't wait for a He-Man movie live action. I want to see He-Man on Battle Cat riding into battle right now. Like every time I see that.
You could have just replaced Thor with He-Man in that scene, and it would have played just as well. Like,
see, the good thing about He-Man, though, when that movie gets made, he does not have a mask or helmet he needs to keep on.
True.
It can be whatever actor's face you have on display the entire time.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, masks. Marvel hates masks.
Matt, you were trying to say something.
I'm Shawn. I love you. I completely. So, if we actually break it down from a character standpoint, Thor is by far, the best and most well-developed character in the entire MCU. If you stop and think about it, let's stop right before this movie takes place. Like all of his journey, him being an outsider, throwing the coffee mug down, figuring out I'm not of this world, magic and science, this and that. You know, coming to grips with that, coming to grips with him being himself, and even in the teen movies, where like the term, Shawn, I would call it, is that like some stories allow someone to be comedic, and then some storytellers tell that person to be comedic. So what I would say is that Thor and Chris Hemsworth, they've loosened up the reins on him, and him allow to, like the scene in the Dark World where he hangs up the hammer, that was all Hemsworth. Like in interviews you see, like he just added that to the movie. He's like, I'm just going to hang up my hammer on this coat rack. And like, it worked in the movie, and it was fun, and everybody liked it. And his development with depression and getting overweight and feeling like it was his fault, getting back into shape, all of this stuff, the whole storyline, like the story has allowed him to be funny, and it wasn't about him being a comedic character per se. You know what I'm saying? So
it's a fish out of the water. It's the Crocodile Dundee. It's the mixing of worlds.
Right. So when you get to this point in this movie, and all these chances, and I mean they're very minimum, and you can see them. All these chances for him to have growth in the natural Thor way that we've watched for a decade, it doesn't hold any weight. Like, literally, and I was talking to Jesse about this a little bit, but like, even at the end, to me, and I'm sorry, like I know everybody wants this new all-women's Avengers. I know Steve's hyped about all the teenage women Avengers that are coming up.
Yeah, he made the petition online. 500 signatures already.
It was such a cop-out from a human standpoint, and being a married man, I'm not single, but literally this movie said, in my opinion, and it doesn't hit you hard over that, but it's like, to feel whole, you need to have someone. And he lost Jane, and now he gets a little girl, and he's going to be a dad now, so he's going to still be whole. Like, it missed an opportunity for a guy post PSD to like understand that to love yourself and to be alone, and you don't have to have technically that, you know what I'm saying? Like, like it doesn't, you don't have to replace one person with another person to feel whole. And I feel like that echoed that you need that, and maybe not intentionally, but it sort of seemed like that's kind of the message they were sending. So I'm like, I'm watching it and I'm like, dude, he can just be happy by himself. Like, can't you let this guy be? Does his purpose have to be another person? Like, that just seems odd to me, because I feel like Thor, at his core, they have the message in this movie where it's like, yeah, love, like choose goodness, choose love, like fight evil, like it's all there. The God Butcher, and then you have this guy, he's got love worth fighting for. Like, I get all of that, but all of the little growth moments and all of the little like key moments of Thor's personality that make him Thor, if you have him hanging the hammer 15 times in the movie, it means nothing.
Yeah. And I never
but
really
you let him hang. You let him hang the hammer one time, and it's brilliant.
I never thought about it that way until you just said it. But not only is it like he's, you know, he comes back into contact with Jane, and he's spending the whole movie kind of chasing her. But at the same time, like, it's not even his old flame, but his old weapon too. Like, and that leads back to the Mjolnir stuff. Yeah, I think you absolutely nailed it. They needed to have that. They never got to that message of where like you can't just keep chasing the past. You know, you
or
got
chasing something.
Well,
Like he was meditating. He was meditating at the beginning.
Right, you're
and then he's like,
finding
"Oh, I'm gonna
yourself in a good place, but now you're going right back to your old stuff where you feel like you need Jane, you need Mjolnir.
Well,
did anyone
and that-
else, real quick, Jesse, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but did anyone else not like the fact that Thor could pick up Mjolnir? That, like when, he's like, oh, I just wanted to see if I could. For some reason, I would have liked it better if Mjolnir was like, no, you told me to protect Jane, I'm Jane's now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like, I don't know, it's just kind of like a weird
had
door
an
to keep
element.
open at that moment. I think it would have been better for his growth. It's like, no, I have to move past this.
I had a love-hate moment with that because there is that part of me. They already did it in Endgame where he has to find that out for himself, and there it is flying across Asgard to him and stuff. It's like it would have been kind of nice. He got all the way on the other side of the stuff that he went through with being overweight, the depression, the PTSD. He gets to the other side of that and he tries to pick it up and he can't do it. And it's not anything to do with him. It's the fact that the enchantment is on that now, and someone who is worthy is in possession of it right now.
Or maybe
like almost that.
Or
I
maybe
didn't
he
think
doesn't
about
even.
it at all, but
Go ahead.
Jesse, you're up.
I talk too much.
I was gonna say I would have preferred at this point. I didn't really think about it. I didn't mind that he was able to pick it up, but thinking about it now, it's like, yeah, I wish he wouldn't have been gone for it.
That's what I was just about to say. Instead of like he's like, I want, and no, I'm good. I don't need that. That you're right. That would have been even better. That's what I came up to.
I mean, because we saw it in Endgame when he and Cap are sharing it.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I never really thought about that, but it's the whole retread.
Yeah, with his mom in Infinity War, where he's like, I'm still worthy, like, and it's like sits with him, and it's a great moment. But like, could you imagine, even if you put it in this movie, it adds way too much because this movie's stuffed. But could you, if this was 2 movies, could you imagine him holding the handle and all of the pieces of hammer fall to the ground in a pile?
That would have been cool.
Yeah, like your time is done with me. Like, it's not that you're not worthy, because we've done that. We've come past that.
I think, like you were saying, with him having to find someone, like the whole progress through him up through Endgame was great, because you have that whole conversation with his mom and the way he ends it. And he's like, I don't need to be who people expect me to be. I need to figure out who however they worded it.
Yeah.
And this one, it just felt like they like this and Multiverse of Madness. I'm not going to harp on that. I feel like they both gave the directors like borderline free reign to do whatever they wanted.
I completely agree.
And I will say this, we can get into it at the end if you want, but I feel like the Black Panther movie seems like it's pushing things back on track. I don't mind the Marvel movies being funny. I like the humor. I don't like when it's humor for 2 hours and 10 minutes nonstop, and there's 2 massively serious storylines that are
it's not a comedy.
Right. Jane's cancer story is not a joke.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't feel like they ever necessarily made it a joke in the movie, but they didn't give it any substance, really. And the God Butcher storyline...
Now
like, in the comics, that's like millennia.
Dude,
that is millennia time frame. Like, Thor fights Gore for the first time as a young Viking god, like back in Viking days. Obviously, you can't do everything the same, but it's...
I really liked the potential of that story. And, like, we get that first scene with, like, him in the desert. His daughter dies. He buries her. He finds the oasis. And his literal god, is sitting in front of him. And he just, like...
That first scene is in the comic.
No.
The origin. Well, I loved it. Like, that origin scene of Gore, I thought it was freaking amazing. Where that god is just a cruel guy. Is just like, yeah, I don't give a shit about you. Like, there's gonna be more when you're gone. Like, how many civilizations have I gone through that worship me? And he just picks up the sword and just like I thought I was all in on Gore after that scene. I'm like, yes, let's see where this is going. And ultimately, after that moment, it never really felt like he was a threat. More just kind of this nuisance buzzing around the universe. Or even when the Guardians scene, when they're like, look at all these distress calls, all these worlds, all their gods, it's like, oh, all right, like we're going to see some ramifications from this. And it never really got there, for me.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I would have been more interested in with a movie like this is, I mean, you can do some humor with it at least, but you don't, like, this should have been like a dramatic race to the finish line for Thor. It would have been interesting to have it. You see him in his younger days, like Jesse's talking about. You have the Viking mythology in there. You have him meet this character for the first time, and you have it be something he barely escapes, or whatever. And it's one of those, him being who Thor is in the first movie, he would look at that as, well, that's a black mark on my history because I shouldn't have run away, or I shouldn't have been pulled away. I should have defeated this enemy and vanquished him and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And then throughout the history, you could have had it in this one going, oh, by the way, this has been going on ever since you fought him the first time. This is a thing that is happening, and that's part of why Asgard fell. That's part of what, like the idea of these were building blocks leading to these things that he lost happening.
But Shawn, that's perfect, because like if you rewrite the movie from that angle, literally, if you make, and we talk about purpose, if you make that the reason why he gets back in shape, like because this God Butcher guy comes back he's been gone for a while, but he comes back, and Thor flashes back to a memory with him in his classic uniform, 20 years ago, right before he joins the Avengers, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Where like you give him that because realistically, the him getting back in shape, had no purpose in this movie other than like the montage of him shaking chains. Like it really didn't, like they didn't really give any real true purpose to that other than, I'm bored now, I'm going to help the Guardians defeat these guys, but I'm also going to be this peaceful guy who meditates by this tree, blah, 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 type of thing. So you almost retwist it that way, and you have it where he finds that purpose in, hey, I'm still the number one. I have this bad mark on my resume when I was a teenager or whatever, and we've got to get back in shape, Cork. Like, I got to get back on the field.
Right.
And then he finds out there's a new player because all of a sudden there's a woman wielding Mjolnir. And then I like the idea that he's looking at this going, this is a villain, this is a force that has decimated the gods at this point. Like not to the point where obviously Zeus was on the hit list yet or whatever, but there is a time. This is coming to a head here. And he sees this woman, Thor, and he knows this person doesn't have any idea of what's going to happen. Thor is on the hit list. Gore's coming after that version of Thor. He comes in to try to help, finds out it's Jane. He's fighting all of his damnedest to protect her through the movie, which, she can protect herself and all that stuff too, because she's got the power of Thor. And it's the whole idea of him trying to stop something with the woman he loves on top of that. And then at the very end, but there's cancer. And it's almost that Superman thing where no matter what powers you have, a heart attack is still going to take away your father. And it's like no matter what you do in that moment, you can have all the powers in the world, but he's still a human man that will die because he's old and his heart wasn't good. She's a human woman that, yes, she gets the power of Thor. And I like that they're like, well, the power of Thor is actually negating your chemotherapy. Right. So every time you turn into Thor, you're not doing anything good to yourself. You're actually killing yourself faster because the chemo is not taking effect properly. The cancer's winning, and it's the whole.
Yeah, as long as she holds that hammer, though.
The other. Yep. As long as she holds that hammer, she's got it. And at the end of the movie, maybe Gordon gets the hammer away, or she loses it, or something. And then that's the moment where he can't do anything to save her no matter what he does there. But the problem with that idea, the more I think about it, is we've already seen Thor lose Loki, Heimdall.
Oh, Thor loses everybody.
His own father, his mother.
Well,
so there is that feeling of you can't keep doing this to this poor guy.
But we do.
At the end of the movie, I'm picturing him with a shotgun in his mouth.
We always do this with Thor. He has the most tragic arc in all of the MCU. Every movie he loses.
Yeah.
And they've played all of the losses except for his mother and Loki.
Yeah.
And his father.
As jokes.
Or when they acknowledged the fact that his friends died in Ragnarok, jokes at the beginning of this movie.
Was anyone else really disturbed? And I don't just throw around like words like triggered or whatever, but New Asgard. Like I really like the concept of like they're like playing into their whole space god mythology angle and like the boat rides and like a tourist destination. I like that. It worked for me. Like for just the I mean think about it. Like most Asgardians are just kind of like common folk. Like they're not all Thors and Sifs and everything. But regardless, going down that boardwalk, how the hell can they name an ice cream shop Infinity Cones with the freaking gauntlet as the logo? That's like I've got a local bakery called Adolf Hitler's, gas chamber pastries.
Yeah, swastikas are us.
Yeah, like how do you? I get the joke, but in universe, like how can you?
In universe, that whole town checks out, except for the name of that place.
Right, except for the ice cream shop. There is no way.
I get it that like it would be a tourist attraction. They go on the boat ride. Like I get all of that. I get that. That's what America does with stuff.
I'd be first in line.
The Infinity Cones. That was that it had to be in a Taika. A Taika thing, like this would be funny.
Yeah, it goes back to that whole thing. It's just like it's you guys took a step too far. Too far.
Well,
go ahead, Shawn.
I just real quick. I mean, to me, like I'm kind of at my limit on Taika Waititi, and I'm not one of those people that's out there wanting to like throw hate at him online.
Yeah.
But there is this kind of feeling of he's almost somebody that, unless you rein him in, he's just going to go nuts and do his own thing. And I feel like in universe, him doing that to him is funny, but he's not thinking of anything about that. Just the same way, like I heard there was this story of him saying, "Oh, I'm going to direct a Star Wars movie next. Natalie Portman, would you like to be in it?" She's like, "Well, I've already been in Star Wars." Oh, you've been in? Like, it's that whole thing. It's like he's got all these crazy ideas and all this stuff, but then at the end of the day, he's not thinking through.
Yeah.
But this is probably the way you should do it.
And that's the artist. That's the artist's world, and that's the artist's vision. But there's reasons why editors exist. There's reasons why we have teams to keep things in check. Where, like you said, with this one, and Jesse was saying with Multiverse of Madness, it's like, hey, bro, like Taika, like I get it. You know what Ragnarok was about, but you should probably watch these other Marvel movies that are connected to Thor before doing this full script to this one, because it will teach you a lot. Because you're not making a one-off movie that can be Thor the comedy.
Right.
Which, if you want to do, that's fine, and have it be your own multiverse and have it not connected to this one, and have the actor be Liam Hemsworth instead. But the thing is, you're dealing with stuff that's already established, personalities that are already in-world established, and the way people interact together already established. So you can tell that, again, it just wasn't thought through. Like, and I get it. I totally get it. And I know people have been shitting on this movie all the time. But, like, I enjoyed it for what it was.
Yep.
I wanted it to be better. It was too bloated. We can break it down how wonderful it would have been if it would have been two movies. And Taika would have gotten his own trilogy. But the thing at the end of the day is, Taika and this cast was having so much fun making this movie that all it ended up being was, you guys remember that fake Thor looking for a roommate skit that like
Yeah,
I don't know if it was
yeah.
like just
No,
on
I didn't
YouTube
see
or
that
it
one.
was like what it was on, but he
Yeah.
like had a guy that worked at a office like as his roommate, and it
Mhm.
was funny,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it was also only 3.5 minutes.
Right.
And
Well, it's something that I actually just thought of that I would be fine with it is if they wanted to give Taika Waititi a play version of the Thor franchise and let him play it out with Chris Hemsworth's brother and Matt Damon as Loki,
Yeah.
like they do in the movies.
Yeah, it was nice
I
to
would
see them
watch
back.
that.
I'm glad they survived.
Well, I would watch that just from
Yeah.
the perspective of that makes sense in a comedy way, and it's almost the same thing as the people that want to hear the guy in Ant-Man tell the entire history of the Marvel Universe in the movies the way he would do it in the Ant-Man movie with the people talking using his own words or whatever. And it's
Yeah.
like I could deal with that because that's not a legit, hey, I'm trying to tell this story, and like it's the weird. It's like, why doesn't steak and chocolate taste
And
good? It's the whole we're cramming two serious storylines into something, but we're not going to make them serious in any way, shape, or form for any longer than 5 minutes, and we're going to just go into the craziness and keep making the carnival ride go round or whatever.
No,
So it's like I'd rather see the Taika Waititi stage plays of the Thor franchise and let somebody else come in and do the Thor movies and have them have some weight and some depth versus the comedic version that we got here.
No, like you guys have said, I think this all boils down to it needed to be 2 movies. And I would have liked this one to really be the God Butcher, Mighty Thor in it, helping Thor out. Like, that's how he tips the scales, is because he's got Mighty Thor. And I would have saved the cancer reveal all the way to the final battle. And then your second movie is all the ramifications of that, and that'll give everything time to breathe.
But even if they don't have, just for conversation's sake, let's say Jane doesn't go to the last battle. Thor beats the God Butcher in all his darkness with a bunch of kids and stuffed animals, and he wins. Like, even that in itself just would have allowed so much more room for other things to breathe within the context of the story.
Nope, completely agree. Real quick, especially for our comic aficionado down there, is Korg a comic character, or is he an MCU only character?
He is a comic character. I've never actually read the comic he's from. He's from Planet Hulk, I believe.
Right.
I did see the animated movie of that.
Yeah, I don't remember Korg in it, though.
And he's significantly different, from my understanding.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed. That sounds weird because I don't want anybody to die, but I'm disappointed that they didn't kill him. Because
No, you know why they did that, though, right?
Why is that?
Because he stands there with a ball 2 feet above his head that they have to look at and talk to. And you can tell that he did that for, like, the first half an hour of the movie. And literally, he was like, I'm not doing that anymore. Just put a fake green Jim Carrey mask on the back, highlighter-style mask on the back of her backpack or her hat or hair, and we'll just edit that in later. That's how it read to me. Like, he was just sick of being in the movie.
That's possible. I would have had more respect for it if they had just killed him there instead of like, no, I've still got my face stone, so I'm completely good. And I don't think they ever really explained how he, like, reformed or anything.
Nope.
I just, like...
See, and that brings me to my major point. I did enjoy this movie. I thought it was fun.
100%.
I had it somewhere around the middle of the MCU. It's probably a little lower now that I've thought about it more. It might reevaluate when I watch it again. But it's pointless.
Yeah.
Other than introducing the
Isn't
daughter.
that sad? Isn't that sad though, Jesse? Because it's pointless, but the things that it introduces are go away anyway. Outside of literally a 2-second scene of him and a new Thor chick jumping at the little girl at the end. Like, that literally is the only point of the entire movie.
Yeah, because
Right.
even Jane dying, you immediately see her at the gates of Valhalla, and they do the text as the screen goes black. Thor will return, which obviously I took it as the mighty Thor because obviously Chris Hemsworth Thor is going to return. He's fine at the end of the movie, so it's like you even pulled your punch there, where instead of having this big meaningful death scene. And, that's where we're left, and Thor being able to move past her death, it's like, oh no, she's training with Heimdall, and we're going to see them all again.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel Multiverse of Madness was a lot, this other than setting up America's powers, which I like that character. I'm glad to see her in the MCU. I think because they've officially now said this is the Multiverse Saga, she's going to have a bigger part to play.
Yep.
But I feel like most of the stuff in that movie, other than killing off Wanda, which I'm 100% it's almost like the mutants in the comics now. We're like, oh, death doesn't matter. I mean, it never mattered for mutants really, but at least we're like, well, okay, they're gonna wait a couple years to bring them back. Now it's just like, oh no, throw them in a golden egg and regrow them, and they'll be fine.
But we still never saw a body in Multiverse of Madness. I'm just gonna say.
Well, and there was that red energy blast when the thing collapsed.
But at least that felt like it progressed Doctor Strange. He's becoming a better person. You know what I mean? Compared to, especially to his other multiversal selves. I'm not saying it was a huge growth, but there was some growth.
True.
Whereas with Thor, looking at it critically, and same thing. I know it sounds like we're just bashing on this movie, but I enjoyed it from beginning to end. I have lots of questions about it and things that don't add up in universe. But by the end of the movie, you could say he actually regressed more than he grew, and that's weird for Thor because he's had such a great, strong character arc, if nothing else, throughout the first 3 movies.
Well, I just wish they would have played up, if they were going to end it with him being a father figure to this little girl.
Yeah.
Have established that earlier where he's struggling with becoming a father figure, not just and everything was fine, and he's immediately knows how to be the charming dad and tie her shoes and
right.
They did in the movie, but they did it really clumsily with him trying to make the kids feel better. Right. And I know Jesse and I, we talked about it a little bit since seeing the movie before we recorded, but yeah, they even played those for laughs. They had Valkyrie, using her hair to make him have an itch on his nose, and he's looking stupid in front of the kids when he's trying to make them feel better. And even in those moments, he always has that bro Thor bravado instead of at least at the end of the movie. The one thing I did like about that was he's helping her get ready. They're having the typical father-kid argument. You're not wearing that out. Oh, yes, I am. And, and they're doing the whole thing. And then I did like him doing the whole, any kids that you see getting picked on, make sure that you take them aside and you take care of them. And, he's doing that speech that you want to make your kids be better people to others and, not make them feel excluded or whatever. But it's that whole thing to me, which I liked. I'm where did that come from? Because nowhere in this movie did that really, it would have been nice for him to have that moment dealing with those kids. And Jane even doing the whole, can you at least try to make them feel safe right now? Can you at least try to make them feel braver and stronger? And that leading into him doing the actual, for a limited time only, you have the power of Thor moment, which I got to admit, I took Hayden with me. He's 5. That moment set him over the edge, and he cheered his little butt off. He couldn't get over that the kids got to be Thor and fight back the things that scared them. And I'm I was right there cheering with him too. That was one of my absolute favorite moments and a well done moment. I don't care what anybody says, if it was good or not, because it paid off the way it needed to with the person it was aimed at.
So the thing exactly. So the thing with that is that they should have set it it could have been set up better. So at the end of Ragnarok, when his dad whispers to him you're like, you're not the god of hammers. Like,
Yeah.
and he like explains that to him.
Yep.
We were revealed to another side of Thor where it's like, it's not the weapon, it's him.
Yes.
So I feel like between that moment and the kid sharing power moment, there should have been a connection there somewhere along, whether it was in this movie or a previous one, where like we see him show this ability to some degree.
That
he did sort of. He did the incantation he did on Mjolnir to keep Jane safe was the foreshadowing of him being able to do that for the kids.
True.
But it was done in such a clumsy way that it didn't add up to that being the solution he needed there. It was more, he was protecting somebody he cared about, just like he's trying to protect the kids. But it was like this, if you didn't think about that, it would be like well, where did that come from? And in the moment, for me at least, I remembered that. I'm like, that's great.
Yeah.
And the whole moment was really good. It might have been a little too long at points, but I still thought it was great that the kids got to fight back because they've been in captivity.
How about if they had even set it up like we were talking about earlier? I think it came from Jesse in the comics. Like, if you set up that Thor had faced Gore as a kid, then you'd have this whole thing at the end where he's giving these kids the power to fight back against the thing he was scared of that he couldn't fight back against.
There you go.
Dude, and Jesse, you're up?
No, go ahead.
But yeah, dude, they like literally him saying, and we have that flashback scene, and him saying the phrase like, I want to be honest with you, children.
Yeah.
I was your age once, and I had my power, and I couldn't beat this guy.
Right.
But I think we can.
Right.
Yeah.
And like for him to admit his defeat as a young child or whatever to these little kids, and then share his power with them. Yeah. So the connection that Shawn was saying about with the fatherly figure, there are so many beautiful mother moments with Thor, father moments with Thor, brother moments with Thor, that they could have drawn from to give him that father, that I'm taking the next steps in my progression of a human. We're like literally like, and I know you guys always, everybody laughs at me because my dad died, but just joking. So like, but like you, the progression, like my father passed away. Like I'm playing softball on this camp that I was at earlier today with all these kids. Yep. Like there's this progression of life that Thor has been on this beautiful journey. And even if it's a new flashback of him as a young adult, and then you like de-age Anthony Hopkins and like you have young Thor with the de-aged Anthony Hopkins, like, and they have this father-son moment with him and Loki that's like, and Thor's like, it's triggering Thor's memory when he's dealing with these kids. And he's like, wait a minute, I've got to be that voice right now to these kids. You know, there was so much more to draw from.
Well, it would have been great if they had a moment with him and Jane, because like you could not go to Valkyrie or Korg out of his group and have that moment. It would have been Jane is the closest to a grounded character that it would have worked for him to be human with her and be vulnerable and open. Right. They have already been together, so like the idea, you know, like them catching up. And him talking about, I lost my mother, I lost my father, I lost Loki and all this stuff. And have him going through the losses that he's been dealt throughout these movies and having her, seeing that loss in him and all that stuff. And then later when it comes time to fight Gore and have to save those kids, him doing the whole, my father would have had a great line to say here. He would have motivated them. He would have had a speech that would have made them scream and all. And her going, well, we don't have your father, but we have you. Okay. And have him looking at all the stuff he's been through and seeing Loki get killed by Thanos in his head again. And it's like, this is the moment he can take back, the same as him being able to cut off Thanos' head, but too late. This is his moment to fix that. Right. This is his reckoning again, and he can do it, and these kids can be safe at least, even though he couldn't save Loki the first time. And it's like there is a great way to play all those things up and have this be a cathartic event for him, and like have that bookend all of these events emotionally that have been dealt to him and that he's gone through. and Taika just wants to have it be a roller coaster ride.
Yeah,
and a carnival event, there are hints of this. There's seeds of these moments that what just us spitballing right now is showing. There are some really good moments in this movie, but they weren't given the chance to blossom into anything more than it's a seed of something that we're picking up and geeking out about, and the movie didn't give anything to that, at least not in a substantial way.
So, a thought that occurred to me based on something that Jesse said earlier. When was the last time we saw Sif in a movie? Has she been in all of them?
She was in the second one.
She was not in Ragnarok.
She was in a TV show, wasn't she?
She was in Loki's memory prison.
That's what it was. Okay,
Well, no, she technically was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I think that's not in 616 MCU anymore.
Well, the movies are not 616 MCU anyway.
Oh, no, sorry, they're not. But
they say they are, but they're not.
Well, but that's why I said 616 MCU, because they're referring to themselves. Yeah. MCU is referring to... Anywho, the movies and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. are no longer together in canon, I believe.
I don't think anyone's officially confirmed or denied that, but the way Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. ended makes me believe...
Right.
I don't think they had gotten to the multiverse stuff yet, but it's another timeline. Right.
So Sif popping back up out of nowhere and being largely ineffectual or not really a part of the storyline. Is this how they get Loki back in? Is this going to be revealed that that's actually Loki, like after his...
Absolutely not.
Would you like... You were very disgusted at the potential for that.
No, because they've introduced Sylvie as the female Loki in the show.
One of the variants, yes.
Right. In the storyline, like Loki, the Asgardian gods, when the Asgard comes to Earth, it's like hovering over a town in Is it New Mexico or Arizona or something?
Oklahoma. Yeah.
And a lot of the gods, like the Asgardians, their spirits are disassociated from their bodies. They're in like other people. And like part of the story is Thor is trying to find them. Well, Loki wakes up in Sif's body, but because of the ways Loki manifests in Sif's body, no one recognizes it's Sif.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when you get like the long black hair female Loki in the comics, is because Loki's running around in Sif's body. I think this was... I feel really bad for Jamie Alexander. I like her as Sif. I feel like she really got shortchanged.
Yeah, they've never done anything with her, and then they bring her back in this and still really don't do anything with her. It was kind of an odd choice.
Yeah. I'm glad they at least showed that she was still alive and that, she didn't die like the other three and get turned into a joke.
Yeah, that was disappointing.
Yeah.
So Jesse did a wonderful job at explaining very well to you, Dooch. I'm going to dumb it down. Jesse's saying that when they take a storyline from the comic book and they retool it to the cinematic universe, they're probably not going to take that same storyline. So they retooled female Loki into the Loki show, and so they're probably not going to retool it a second time into Sif. That's what I'm thinking you meant, or you were like explaining.
Yeah, that's what he said. I was just curious, and I didn't even dawn on me until he made the comment earlier in our episode that Loki was in Sif's body at one time, because it just in my mind it just triggered that that would give Sif a purpose in this movie that she didn't actually have.
Sif's purpose in this movie was to say oh shit 6 times.
Yeah, and
everybody else.
Like Raphael, I respect it.
If they would have given me the choice between Sif or Valkyrie, I would have picked Sif every day over Valkyrie, because I wasn't even a big fan of her in the first go round in Ragnarok, and she didn't add much to the story here either. I mean, she added more to it in the last movie. This time around, it's like they could have just had her be a cameo. You see her looking bored, being
they made it seem like it was going to be a plot point that like she was bored not being a warrior and she was stuck behind a desk and like they made a big. And I don't remember there even being a phrase in this movie of her being like, glad to be back on the battlefield. Like that's some boring crap. Like,
well,
I mean,
she
even
went
if
on
it
a
was, it
booze
wasn't
cruise.
memorable enough. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically.
She got on the boat, she partied, like I liked the idea of setting her up as the new king, but then when they turned I hated New Asgard being a theme park. I would have been okay if there was like a town outside of New Asgard that humans turned into a theme park.
But even so even you saying that, like, I have to preface my comment earlier. I see that as happening what they did with New Asgard, but I don't think that it really added anything relevant or good to this movie. The movie could have taken place all exactly the same,
other than showing how they make their money, I guess. Because MCU always tries to be a little more realistic. So, like trying to show an economy. A little lower. You're way too high.
This is me making a jerk off noise explaining that. Because whatever.
And I guess I kind of looked at it as like that's like the. I mean, I guess technically they did show them sleeping in those buildings, but like that's the show they put on for the tourists. Well, you know what I mean?
Here's a plot point that just occurred to me in what they're setting up in this movie, because the very beginning of the movie you have Gore, and it's all about the belief. It's all about he believes in this God, and the God didn't do anything for him. But then the God's like, well, we're going to have others. There's going to be other people to replace you in your belief system, so why should I worry about one of you? And it would be kind of fun to have the reason that Gore is coming after Thor in this one is the fact New Asgard is now on Earth, and if they would have done it where New Asgard is its own thing, there's no theme park, but humans around the area are making a theme park because that now is a thing that they're adapting to in their state. Right. Suddenly your belief system is off the charts. Suddenly there's people, because they've seen Thor fighting in New York. They've seen Thor in the Avengers movies. They were thrilled when Thor showed back up in Infinity War. That is now putting the target on Thor's back because Gore is seeing the belief going off the charts, because every time Thor shows up, suddenly there are people rallying to him and believing in the Asgardians again, and making them too powerful.
It's like the end
of thought about this for a couple minutes.
Who would have thought, right? And that's the thing. Like, it does come down to that belief structure in the very beginning of the movie, and they don't really go there with anything else. So it's like, at least you could have played that up in that movie as like, okay, here's the bad version of it. Gore's dealing with the bad version. And in New Asgard, there's a whole bunch of people that, like Thor is now a celebrity. People are believing in the gods again, on top of, the typical religious stuff we have. Go for it,
Something's going on over here.
I think Matt's having a stroke.
I need Jesse to say what he was going to say, and then I'm going to follow up.
Sorry.
No. I don't know what I was going to say. I loved being a Christian, being a person of faith, seeing that opening scene where Gore is completely gutted by the being he believes in.
Right.
Yeah.
Even though that guy was so hokey, like, I liked how hokey was. I liked how hokey Zeus was. Because, like, Zeus constantly going, like, oh, we're going to have the orgy? Oh, we're going to have the orgy? Like, that was funny because, like,
my man.
That's Zeus. I mean, except he wouldn't have been asking when it was going to happen. He would just be horrible.
It's time.
But like, never has Travis been more represented in a movie than Russell Crowe.
I just liked, like, I was like, oh, even though I felt the transition into the Oasis, like, so much of this movie was just like, it was like everything was like a step. I missed steps between stuff. It was like watching a French movie adapted into English, or reading a French comic that's been adapted into English, where it's like, I kind of get what's going on, but like, I totally missed how they got from like Italy to England in a panel. It just, but like seeing that faith thing and setting that scene up was so powerful. And then it went nowhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. It's my turn. Dude, all I'm saying is, like you, as a person of Christian belief and faith, like, I err on the side of, like, I believe that there is a God and that any question is big enough and he can handle the weight of his shoulder. Like, so I definitely welcome any sort of discussion and theology debate, and like I absolutely, especially being a creative mind, I adore those conversations I have with my friends that are believers, non-believers, and anywhere in between. And so that opening scene, and to have a God act like that, I'm like, this is going to be good. Like, this is going to, like, touch a little bit of that we don't get touched a little bit. And I mean, that sounds dirty, but no, but that we don't like, literally, Captain's like,
yeah,
I know God, ma'am, and that's not how he dresses, like, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But like, that it was going to go there and have, like, good discussion.
Yeah.
And Shawn, what you said is, like, it set it up so much for it to literally be all these little kids looking at Thor, treating him like a god, and him to kneel down next to them and be like, dude, I might be like a god to you, but I am me. And like, just like that whole, like, reverse, like flip it on its head, like, and like you said, flip it on its head. Like, okay, we're going to bring it back in full circle because that nighttime scene is crazy. I'm about to pitch a movie right here, guys. You need to go home and watch it at some point. Rise of the Guardians. Fantastic children's movie.
It, yeah.
Absolutely love how creative it was. And that's who Gore was like in this movie, Pitch Black, where, like, he's looking at the belief system. And when people believe in the Easter Bunny and Christmas and everything, it lights up on this globe.
Yep.
And this god Butcher, like, all of a sudden, New Asgard's, like, lighting up like a Christmas tree, and they've got a statue of Thor and, like, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then when he goes to fight Thor, because all these people believe in him, and then Thor to be like, hey, like, I get it. I'm a god to them, but somebody's also a god to me, like, and how he treats Zeus. Like, there were so many missed opportunities storyline-wise to follow through with any of the 9 storylines that we've been talking about, and just actually follow through with one of them, to where it could be like this really cool moment of Thor saying, I'm not the god you think I am, or whatever, to these kids, and then sharing his power, or something along those lines. Like, there was just that missed opportunity. So when the movie opened up, that opening scene, it might be top 5 opening scenes, Marvel movies of me all time. Like, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
Because it made me uneasy. Like, it made me feel weird about faith and about religion and about spirituality. Like, I liked that about it. And so I just feel like that missed opportunity where, like, yeah, he's a god butcher, but then you go back on it, like, okay, let's talk about this guy. Like, if he's a god butcher, are those really gods then? Because he's killed them all. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, that type of stuff. Like, go deeper in any of these storylines, and we've got a fantastic, or a more fantastic movie. But if you say, like, Dooch, say the phrase right now. Say the phrase right now. I love my wife and my new kitten. Say that phrase right now.
I love my wife and my new kitten.
Ah! Like, you were about to have a moment, and I threw the worst go imitation at you.
Like, hold on.
Real quick before we get to the goats. So, and then, okay, so following your path, if we're going to do the whole reform the villain at the end thing, because heaven forbid we just have a good old-fashioned villain beatdown. We can't do that anymore. You know, we've got to have the villain see the error of their ways, reform, whatever. Why wasn't
a real villain?
Huh? Well,
He wasn't a real villain.
Well, that's it. But, so why wasn't Thor and the kids enough to challenge Gore's belief system? Because his whole thing is his cruel god that forsook him and his people, and then he comes up against Thor, and all of a sudden here's this god that's doing everything for his people, for the kids. He's giving them. He's sharing his power with them. He's putting his life on the line for this. Why isn't that enough to make Gore go?
I think
wait a minute.
They didn't make it. They didn't do it well enough, but I think it had to do with this. It was the sword that wanted to kill the gods. From what my recollection is.
Right, but it all started with Gore being. He had to be in the right place to be the vessel for the sword. But I'm just saying, if you just lean into that with Gore starting to question his mission, because wait, this guy's like fighting for his people.
Yeah.
And then that's why the sword starts losing its hold on him. And again, it's all about challenging beliefs. It's all about...
Maybe not all gods are the same.
Maybe they're not. Maybe some are good. Maybe some are worthy. Ooh,
yes.
That.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jesse.
No, Shawn, go.
No. Oh, I'm just saying to complete that part. Like you have him. It would have been nice to have the Necro Sword being the antithesis of Stormbreaker with Thor, and you have that sword pulling him in those negative, destructive ways, and he sees all those kids, and the fact that there's Thor coming to rescue those kids. The god is there to protect his people, and it shakes him to see maybe his daughter. He sees his daughter in the crowd, and all of a sudden it's like, and it's like the connection to the Necro Sword and him make it that he can't fight them at the end. So it's not so much they have to defeat him; it's more get the sword away from him, and then he can just be reasoned with or whatever.
Stormbreaker turns and looks at Thor, and Thor sharing his power, and Stormbreaker sheds a tear and is like, "That's my Thor." Stop, Shawn, will you stop wonderful plot points in this movie that could have been done better?
Yeah.
I'm sick of it.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I suck.
Yeah.
So back to my New Asgard issue.
Yeah.
So you have the human town outside of New Asgard that's worshiping them, like everybody's there, and they've taken Thor's "that's what heroes do" to be like, oh, that's what gods do. That's what gods do. Mm-hmm. And that's like a recurring theme throughout the movie, and Gore is like enraged by this.
Right.
At the end, when Thor shares the power, and one of the kids is like, "Yeah, you're sharing your power because that's what gods do," and he's like, "No, that's what heroes do." And that's that moment, that, obviously set it up a little better, but something like that, because that goes back to Ragnarok.
That would have been your Avengers Assemble moment.
Yeah,
that would have had me cheering, because that was it would have been a moment that was silly originally, taken in a way where now it's a rallying cry. Yeah, and it's how cool is that? And still have that fun, and still have that fun weight to it, sharing the power. Yes, where he kneels down and he says, "No, that's what heroes do." Because guess what? All these little kids, they're never going to be gods, but guess what? They can be. They can be heroes. Yes. And Jesse nailed it on the head, and I think that's the main word you used, was that the word theme. Yeah. That this movie lacked any theme. It literally, there were 5 to 7 to 9 different themes that it could have grabbed onto tighter instead of trying to juggle 9 of them, and it did not grab any of them strong enough.
Yeah, it grabbed one strong enough.
The goats?
The goats.
Coming back around.
I don't know what you see in them, honestly. I went into the movie all right, Jesse loves these goats, and I'm just like, I don't see it.
I have seen Jesse watch YouTube videos and laugh to the point where he honks. There's no other noise he can do, but he literally will just honk because goats screaming make him laugh.
Or when they hit the black and white planet,
I lost it.
When they hit the planet, I lost myself. I laughed and I looked around with the "I'm sorry" eyes.
Yeah, no, when it happened, and you just hear that boom, and my son goes, "Did they just kill the goats?" And I think they did it. Then I just started laughing so much harder because I'm like, I didn't see that coming at all. That was the only moment that got me.
I have to ask you guys, because we barely touched on it. As soon as we touched on it, Travis was mentioned.
Yeah,
sorry.
But the whole gods scene. Obviously, that was a scene that they went into this being like, this would be funny. Let's do this scene with the gods. Jesse, is that in any of the comic books? And guys, how did you feel about that scene?
I don't remember a scene like that in in either of these stories. I know there was a scene where Jane's on like a council with the other realms, kind of like a senator type thing for Earth, a representative for Midgard. But I can't remember if she was there as Jane or as Thor. But I don't remember a scene like this. I know Omnipotent City, I think, is from the comics. In that storyline, I think, because it goes to past Thor, current Thor, and then future Thor, where he looks like Odin and he's like All-Father Thor, which he kind of is now, technically. And he's got 3 granddaughters that are looking for history on how to defeat Gore. And I think they go to Omnipotent City, but there's only like 1 or 2 like wizened old like archivists in there, and it's all books, which is cool in the comics, would have been boring as hell in the movie, especially the way this movie went.
I really liked the scene. I thought it was really well done, and I thought there was a good balance of, like, obviously Zeus was putting on a show, and like his whole thing with like, obviously, like, you know, with Thor Private, he's like, like, Gore's gonna come and kill us. Like, I'm gonna have some fun before that happens. Like, with them just kind of giving up, again, it kind of comes back to the whole belief thing and how those gods are just, you know, it plays in that theme we were just talking about. Those gods are all just kind of like, we're just gonna hunker down and hope for the best for ourselves, whereas Thor's traveling out and saving his people. Like, again, there's that paradox for Gore to, like, stop for a minute and go like, why is he different, you know, and start to question the beliefs. I was surprised they didn't have Gore crash that scene. That's what I kept expecting.
Or what?
Why Gore never went to Omnipotent City.
Oh.
I kept expecting it, like, as they're going along. I thought that was going to be Thor's way out, is that Gore shows up and wrecks the place and they're able to escape. That was a little weird, but I think I liked it.
Honestly, Gore showing up and throwing a lightning bolt through Zeus is more compelling end scene to that scene for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that scene, it should have played out. They go there and they see all these vessels, all these things, almost like at the beginning of Neverending Story, where you see all the beings coming to the Emperor's palace or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're trying to put on the airs that we're just having fun, you know, that whole facade. And like Thor's looking around and they're like, there's guards everywhere. And this place looks filled, but there were too many gods there.
It should have been a bit emptier with all the dead.
It should have been emptier. There should have been like this weird sense of dread if there's this god butcher, and the place looked packed and it looked like any other day.
Right.
And
I think they tried to do that a little bit.
There was no fear from that standpoint. If it would have been a third full, and them to plead, like, and somebody to say to Zeus, like, look, this place is empty. Like, again, it plays better. Him explaining it to Zeus plays better in that sense of, hey, this place is empty. You know, we got to do something about this guy. But then also, again, going back to the whole God, man, hero thing, that the echoing of, like, they had that mini story thread where you have him being let down by his hero, and like that was it. Like, there was no fulfillment of why they gave us that moment. Like, I get why they gave us that moment, but you need to resolve that moment. Like, you need to have him.
Good.
No, you're good.
You have Thor having that moment where he realizes, like, he's disappointed, and maybe you set something up. That's how where Gore knows to go.
Yeah.
Is when people are losing faith in their gods, he goes and, like, just dispatches their gods for them, and that's what draws Gore to Omnipotent City and kills Zeus.
That would have been cool.
Perfect. Yeah, because obviously a god being disappointed in who his god is, so and so the hero, like, that probably would echo more in the heart of this sword that he has, because that's like, you know, 10,000 cries of a, you know, fallen faith people, you know, type of thing.
The only part of that scene that even mattered was the fact that Zeus actually tips his hand and admits Gore can't get to eternity and so they have nothing to worry about. And it just seemed like such an out of left field thing. Like, I get Zeus would know that because he's the god. I get that. But it's like, to have that be such a thrown out line there, and that now is, it's a race against time to get to an eternity so that we can make the one wish and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, okay, we're going there now on top of everything else we're throwing into the mix with this soup we're making, or this stew. And it's like, it could have been done differently. And I do like the idea about her, like Jesse's saying, it should have looked depleted, and it would have been a cool way, like Matt's saying, to have Gore crash that party, have it that Zeus is about ready to have the orgy, and then boom, all hell breaks loose. Thor manages to get away. The rest of them end up being cannon fodder, and when he's left behind. Or that's how he finds out about eternity. Right. And then you realize now the race is on. Thor's got to get there first. He's got a little bit of a head start because he is now getting out of there while Gore's killing everybody, but now Gore's right there after him, and there's a whole bunch of ways it could have played out.
Yeah. So I'll ask you guys this then too, with that scene followed into the next one, is that it seemed like the one story thread that now I'm thinking about that he did follow through with sort of didn't even really need, like, Stormbreaker was jealous. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But then Stormbreaker ended up being what was needed to get there, blah, 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 blah. Like, It was the linchpin, like, and I don't know if that was like some weird ancient text of a picture of Stormbreaker or whatever Gore was looking at, but apparently Stormbreaker was the key, which is fine. But Stormbreaker being a jealous hammer, going into Stormbreaker's now the key that they need to use, seems like a story thread that they actually followed through with. But did it need to? Is that comic accurate? Was it like just something that they just decided, this would be cool if Stormbreaker is the key because he's jealous hammer? You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's not the jealous hammer, right? It's because he's imbued with the power of the Bifrost. And the Bifrost is lost now that Heimdall's gone.
Correct. And is that comic accurate? Because when Gore was looking at the pictures, the ancient runes, what they appeared to be ancient runes, like, I was like, wait a minute, didn't they just make that hammer like 10 years ago?
Yeah.
I have a simple workaround that should have been explained, is that, like, that was a prophecy.
Yeah. Okay.
That was some sort of predictive thing. So, like, Stormbreaker didn't exist when they wrote that, but someone had a vision of it being the key. And maybe that's a thing when you see maybe some of these gods, when Thor walks into Omnipotent City with Stormbreaker on his back, they're all like,
the prophecy
that's the thing.
Yeah.
Or if you have Gore explain, like, he's looking at these ancient runes or these relics and everything, and it shows the Bifrost. Yeah. And he's like, well, how is this possible? Because the Bifrost is gone. Like, that's gone. Like, the way Heimdall used it, like, that's gone. And then when Gore's in that city near the beginning, and he sees Thor come down, and he sees the rainbow, he's like, I've got an in now. I might have an in. So just a little bit more explanation there, I thought, would have gone a long way.
Or you could even echo back to Ragnarok again, where Gore realizes, the Bifrost comes from Asgard.
Right.
Wait, Asgard isn't a place. Asgard is people, and that becomes a threat, like an ominous line.
Right.
What do you guys think about?
And that's what takes him to Asgard to start looking for Thor. Sorry.
No, that would have tied in much better. What do you guys think about Hercules showing up?
Second best part of the movie.
God, he looked like he just stepped out of the comic page, didn't he?
I can't remember the actor's name.
Well, his name's Roy Kent. I don't care what the actor's name is.
Fucking everywhere.
He's fucking Roy Kent.
I don't know if you guys have seen interviews with him, but I learned not very recently, but he's one of the writers on the show on Ted Lasso. And
I didn't know he's a writer.
When they were doing auditions for Roy Kent, he was flying back to England and where he's from, and he realized, he's like, I think I'm Roy Kent. And so he filmed himself doing some bits and some lines of it,
Right.
and sent it to the other writers and emailed and said, hey, I know this sounds weird. Obviously, I'm not an actor. I'm a writer like you guys, but I think I'm Roy Kent. And then they saw the videos. They're like, yeah, you're fucking Roy Kent.
Yeah. His name is Brett Goldstein, but he is only Roy Kent to me. That's
Yeah.
Soon to be heard.
I thought he was fantastic.
I would be curious to see what they do with him, but at the same time, I'm really scared if there's a Thor 5, because I don't want Thor 5 to be more Taika Waititi. So hopefully they have somebody who... I don't mind if there's comedy at points. I don't mind if there's like an adventurous, lighter feel to some of these movies, but I'd like it to actually, like Jesse said, it really amounted to not much. So at least have some substance to it the next time around, because this one kind of proved you can't just put a Marvel Studios logo at the beginning of the movie and have people think that it's the greatest thing, because this one proved you can't just throw whatever out there and everybody's going to just be thrilled with it.
So far with Phase 4, I think that's their main issue, is that they think that fluff all individually is going to be good enough, and the point of everything is going to be handled in the bigger movie moment, the bigger movies, like the team up type stuff, like the Kang movies coming up and all that stuff. Like I feel like the moments that grew it the past 10 years in the first 3 phases, they just held so much more weight, where you're watching all these TV shows and these handful of movies, and like Jesse was saying with Doctor Strange, that outside of introducing a girl with new fantastical powers, like it, I mean, and Doctor Strange is going to be less of a dick because he met more of a dick of himself. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
something that makes me nervous is they're coming out with that Secret Invasion show, and that show. The more I'm thinking about Phase 4. I mean, in the comics, they were like, well, if you look at the way that the characters have been portrayed in the last 10 to 15 years, you're going to notice some inconsistencies, and those are the characters you want to look for when the Secret Invasion miniseries comes out. That's making me go, okay, so is this like the fact that Doctor Strange isn't landing well with people the way that they hoped? Same with Thor. Is that going to lead up to all of a sudden they're Skrulls? And I hope to God they're not doing that with these movies in that way. But it wouldn't surprise me if they're like, well, we don't really have a plan other than Secret Invasion or Secret Wars coming down the pipeline too. It's like, okay, let's do some stuff where it is a little bit off. And then we can go, oh, well, it was a Skrull the whole time. And then it's like, well, then why did I pay freaking like $20 to go see this movie knowing that isn't even the real character I wanted to see, you know?
It'll be interesting to see where it's all going. I think that is the biggest problem, is by this point, like in Phase 1, we understood that the Infinity Stones, I mean, long before this point, really, because if you factor in the movies and the TV shows, like we have more content right now, I would say, than like Phase 1 alone. And yet we still don't have a clear picture of where it's going. It's multiversal, it's Kang, it's, you know, Skrulls have to play a part, you would think. Then we've got, you know, the Celestials, you know. Obviously this phase is leaning into, you know, the mythic, the galactic, you know.
Big picture, yeah.
But those, the more power sets, but... You're still way too high, buddy. Way too high.
All I'm saying... It's by my face. All I'm saying...
You'd never get it up there.
Is that literally... Eternals. Freaking Skrulls.
Yep.
Multiverse.
Right.
Secret Invasion. Kang timelines.
Yeah.
Like, these are all different things that are done well separate.
Yeah.
Right.
And they've sort of went like this with all of them, and so that's where the confusion is coming.
Right.
Where like, okay, Kang's timeline stuff, which, okay, so are we talking timeline multiverse, or are we just talking timeline stuff? Like like so interdimensional. Like so, they definitely are playing very loose-handed with the lore.
Yep.
And so for them to even dabble in Secret Wars or Secret Invasion while they're doing timeline and multiverse stuff, to me it would be like, and I've had this conversation with you guys before, X-Men's, next to He-Man, X-Men's my favorite. I could talk about X-Men all day long. I absolutely love it. I don't want mutants in the MCU for at least another 10 years personally.
Right.
Because I think there's way too much stuff that we can talk about and do, and it adds way too many layers of questions and inconsistencies.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that's where I don't think they're smart enough to be like, oh, well, that was a scroll back then. Like, I think that they hinted at that a little bit with Fury and a couple of little minor points.
Yeah.
But I just think that they're not overseeing the projects quite as tightly as become so good that they technically don't. Yeah. Because now we're going multi-universal in the sense of, like I tell people all the time, Miss Marvel might not be for you. Like the MCU itself has become so big that you might not like every single offering that it has.
Right.
And that's okay, but you need to be okay with that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, the other, like right now we have this, to me this is a lull period, which is really weird because you can't really point, like you said, you can't point at one thing and go, this is the next event because there's too many things going on.
Right.
And it's like the saving point for me at this point is when the X-Men finally show up or when the Fantastic Four shows up. And I'm not even the biggest Fantastic Four person. I'm way more X-Men than anything, even including Avengers.
Yeah.
Growing up, the X-Men was always my thing. And it's like, you gotta already figure that's the next 10 to 15 years worth of Marvel movies coming out the minute the X-Men show up. Because that's going to be the new Avengers from here on out. Then.
I'd almost like them, since we're playing with multiverse anyways, like, just make a mutant universe. Like, just let them... Because, I mean, the X-Men have enough on their own for solo movies, team movies,
absolutely,
big events, you know... Like, just
let them
exist on their own world without the other heroes, and you've still got a whole X-universe, XCU. So, and it would be fine without any of the other heroes.
I don't know what's going on right now.
That's my mutant gene. The X-Men at their heart, at the heart of X-Men, it doesn't translate to MCU right now because, and I was talking to my buddy about this, God bless him, I can't even think of his name right now, Len LaGuardia.
Okay.
That right now, if Peter Parker is swinging and Miss Marvel is flying over here, Peter Parker being not a mutant and Miss Marvel being a mutant, did he just sleep? I'm trying to talk to this guy.
He's having a coughing fit. Hang on 1 second.
Speaking of Len.
No, but because of those two things, because at its core, the prejudice and the racism and the feeling like an outsider and the feeling disenfranchised and disconnected and all of that wonderful stuff that youth can just eat up because that's kind of what the youthful spirit feels like at certain times. And I mean, all of us at certain times, but definitely that adolescence, that stuff doesn't translate because there's no way I'm really believing that they're trying to round up Miss Marvel when Iron Man's a billionaire that we already know who he is and he flies around town and we know, you know what I'm saying? Like it just doesn't hold any of the actual weight that the original intention was there for. And so that's why I struggle with them trying to integrate it is I'm like, I don't know how caught up, spoilers alert, you guys are on Miss Marvel or if you even watched it, but like they have the FBI-ish kind of people. They're like, these people are different. We're going to try to find them and round them up. And I get what they're doing in the show, but in my head, this is the MCU and you've already established rules. I'm like, why? Like, I don't see them always chasing Spider-Man. Like, I don't see them oh, like all of a sudden now we're going to have problems with people that are born with abilities, but we're not. You know what I'm saying? So that's the part that I don't think there's a script good enough that will convince me that mutants will work at the level I would like them, and I've seen them work.
True.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see them bring out either the Ultimates timeline concept where the government created mutants.
Whoa, spoiler alerts.
That's been like 20 years old. I don't know if that's a spoiler anymore, dude.
Yeah. I mean, that was interesting because like the mutants existed for a long time, and then it got outed after or during the Ultimatum wave that the Ultimatum storyline that the mutants were actually manufactured by the government, and
I must not have made it that far. I followed that one, that X-Men. That was the one X-Men book I followed for a long time.
That was like the last thing before they started calling them like the like everything was called like Ultimate Comics X-Men, Ultimate Comics Miles, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It was like the end of the Ultimates era. But especially since they're gearing towards Secret Wars, guarantee you it's going to be more like the 2013, whatever that Secret Wars was just a couple years ago, more than the 80s one. Where all the realities get fractured into Battle World. Doom is like God Doom, but it'll either be Doom or Kang, depending on how that plays out.
Right.
And then at the end, the different universe. So my thought is for the mutants, they'll either be government made or they'll get transported here from another reality, or they'll have been here but in secret, and then something happens in the universe that brings them to light that now triggers the government specifically looking
and
for
some
mutants.
people were thinking like the snap and like the snap back might have been it, and different things like that. We'll see.
Well, Roy can't. But the other thing too, I mean, Civil War already showed us that the government wanted to have the heroes under their thumb,
Right.
And so that's already been established enough that I don't mind the idea that was enough of a step in that direction that the government would see it as a threat. And now all of a sudden we can't even regulate this because they're born like this. And that is a problem. And there is certain things that still, like today, there are you have to deal with race issues. You have to deal with even sexuality issues, homosexuality, bi whatever. And it's like that whole idea of some of this is not a choice that you made. It's just that's how you were born, and boom.
Well, and
so in that way, it to me it still tracks. It's just not as prevalent the way that you wanted to see. I get that, but it is stuff that they began. At least there are seeds,
right? Because the government has no way of tracking who gets bitten by a radioactive spider or who puts on a magic bracelet. But if they can find this genome and isolate it, and then start searching, through medical records looking for this mutant gene, that gives you your why as to why they're hunting down mutants, because that's something like you've had blood work done as a kid. They can check it and they can find it and they can utilize you effectively is the ultimate goal.
Oh yeah, you need an extra vaccination that the other kids aren't getting.
Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Go to a special school.
I'm not wearing a mask. You can't make me.
If you want to unprotect your identity, you will. No, but see, there are things that could definitely set up mutants as a threat, because if
okay, you guys convinced me. Okay, I'm in.
No. I'm just. Have you guys all seen the Black Panther trailer for Wakanda Forever?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. They're bringing in Namor. In the comics, they've revealed he is a mutant. So if Wakanda goes to war with Atlantis or whatever they've renamed it, which I'm totally fine with. I'm all on board for reimagining it as Mayan or Central South American culture. I think that's really cool.
Wait, did you? Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think I was going to ask you, because you follow the comic books more. You think that it was interesting that they're copying DC Comics by making him a little bit more ethnic. sorry, that joke didn't work.
No.
It's actually been said he's not white to begin with in the
No, I
comics. I
know,
looked
I
that
know.
up out of curiosity, and
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
And
I think he
the
looks fantastic.
Yeah.
I think he looks fantastic.
and I think the Atlantis rename is to distance it from, like, anyone can use Atlantis. Like, let's
Yeah.
get our
I
own thing, you know.
I think they're going to establish that this is the culture that inspired the myth
Oh,
of
yeah.
Atlantis.
I would
Yeah.
Just like, I mean, whoever wrote, whatever ancient historian wrote the stuff that
Yeah.
people took to become Atlantis,
right.
some people have compared that to cultures in South America or Central America. I can't remember exactly where. They're like, oh, that could be these cities, and he could have seen these things or been told about these things that people saw. I'm like,
And-
okay, South America, Central America, Atlantis, beautiful.
And I'm betting
But-
there'll even be a gag line in there like, "Are you from Atlantis?" You know, and we call it whatever, you know.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but if Namor is established as a mutant or revealed to be a mutant, you've got Wakanda goes to war with them or gets attacked
Yep.
by them. And the whole world's like, you just took out the most advanced culture on our planet. Mutants are bad. Like, they could catalyst this very quickly. I'm with you. I want to see them do it right. I'd be fine waiting another 10 years for the X-Men to come in properly because they are my favorite comics of all time. Not currently, but
I knew I loved you.
But at least you have
The
those
spark
Fox
of-
movies to go back to and rewatch.
What Fox
Ugh. Even I turned my nose up at those, to be honest.
Hey, let's get back to Thor here just for a quick
Thor!
second, though. I had the idea. I think I talked to Jesse about it, but Dooch, I want to pitch you an idea.
Pitch me.
I took my parking brake off for a second there. I started rolling.
excited.
So this movie was supposed to be 2 movies.
Yes.
Jane doesn't show up at the end.
Okay.
Thor wins with
Okay.
the kids. We
Yep.
have great father-daughter, father-kid relationship stuff.
Conquering your fears, all that.
Okay.
Mhm.
So Jane doesn't show up, so she's not dead.
Right.
So next movie comes, and because I think Russell Crowe did a fabulous job with Zeus's accent and his voice.
Oh, yeah.
I have 5% left. I love it. And if the way Zeus tells Hercules who to go beat up is a beautiful blonde with a hammer, and so you have Hercules trying to hunt down Jane
nice.
instead of actually Thor.
Yeah.
Because guess what? Guess who's going to make Thor look not as dumb? Hercules.
I love
And
it.
I think that Roy Kent could have pulled that off.
I love it.
And-
Absolutely.
You could have had him running into Odin's son Thor because he has an axe, not a hammer.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
Like, hey, I'm looking for this thing. He's like, oh yeah, like, and Thor being completely
Oblivious.
confused, like not
Mhm.
realizing he's talking about Jane, and it's like a buddy trip with them, and they're like, oh wait, you're trying to kill my ex-girlfriend.
Dude, oh my gosh, that would be hilarious.
I love it. Oh, the movie we could have gotten.
Yeah, no kidding. 2 movies we could have got.
So overall,
All right, Marvel, if you're listening to this podcast, just give me a call. Jesse and I will be on the next flight to Waikiki's house. By the way, earlier, I called it PSD. I'm aware of it, guys. So, just
PTSD,
so you know,
yeah.
I know you guys heard me say PSD, and I know I sounded like a fool.
it's fine. We're used
So-
to it with you.
I do want to say, I think Taika Waititi was totally capable of making this
Yes.
the movie it should have been. I mean, between Hunt for the Wilder People and Jojo Rabbit,
Yeah.
Yep.
like, he can make serious content. I think this was just, they were all having such a good time, and
The whole
you know, I
cast.
can almost hear Matt Berry, that whole thing of like,
Yeah.
oh, he's my favorite guy, my whatever that, I can't remember what that quote is. Sean probably knows it. He's hearing it in perfect.
I'm just imagining.
He's my good time boy, my something cheese or something like that.
But Jane, I thought you were dead. Just doing that whole thing.
Yeah, I just they just seem to. It's almost like Ocean's 11, 12. Ocean's 11, 12? Ocean's
11,
12.
13, 15, whatever they're up to.
Where
Yeah.
the
Ocean's
joke
11
was
is a sequel.
the joke was on us, the audience,
Yeah.
because there was no way you could have figured that movie out. In the first one, there was little hints here and there that you could have pieced. At the end of the second one, it was just kind of like, ha 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 ha. You know,
Yeah.
the suckers never saw it coming. And
No, it's definitely Love and Thunder is definitely a good, enjoyable movie. I'll watch it again. Like I did enjoy it. It's got some great scenes, and it was so close to knocking the storyline out of the park. That's the most disappointing part. Is that you were so close to an epic movie
didn't
and
finish.
you fell short.
I mean,
I always
and what I will
finish.
say to what I say to you guys is, and we've had discussions about the rewatchability of movies.
Yep.
So I'm genuinely interested in seeing this a second time.
Yep.
Because the category of rewatchability definitely changes my positioning on how I feel about certain movies.
Absolutely.
Same. Yeah.
sure. I've rewatched Multiverse of Madness twice. Once with my mom, once with a reaction person on YouTube. I got my pre-order steelbook in the mail the other day, and I have not taken it out of the shrink wrapper yet. It usually doesn't make it home without being opened.
Yeah. So that just it has not won you over at all, huh?
No, I'm not as
Interesting.
angry about it as I was when I first saw it, but
Yeah.
I don't like it anymore.
But you still bought the steelbook.
Strange just never was a solo movie guy to me. He was.
Yeah.
I always, same with Namor though. I always loved him interacting. I just was never. I just was never convinced that the character of Doctor Strange by himself can. And obviously they realize that too, because they have to make it into a buddy comedy or a buddy movie, you know, with him, and he needs those interactions. And we've talked about that before with certain characters and certain elements that some things can hold weight on their own and be completely like, dude, Captain America, I know he had side characters in that movie, but like that was an Indiana Jones movie to me. Like Captain America, he can hold it down. You know, Namor, not so much. In my opinion. Doctor Strange, not so much, in my opinion.
And that's why you're seeing these movies becoming more and more, you know, like Doctor Strange had Scarlet Witch, had America Chavez, you know, like there's very few solo movies anymore, really, when you break it down. Most of it, through the last phases, has been, you know, even Captain America, he got one movie to himself, and then everything else was kind of pushing the Avengers storyline along more than anything else. So that's just kind of where Marvel's come, and that's what's so weird about this phase where we don't have a clear picture yet.
Marvel as a studio is now where Thor was at the beginning of his first movie.
Yep.
They're going to get brought low, and I'm not wishing this, I'm not saying bad things, but they're going to hit some low spots, and then they're going to earn their way back up. I don't want to get my hopes up and get disappointed, but that Black Panther trailer, even if it wasn't a Marvel movie, just looks like a fantastic. Like I almost started tearing up in that trailer, and for a trailer to hit me that hard on basically Prozac, that's doing something.
And so with that, for me, I adored Chadwick as Black Panther. Like the fact that we're not going to get to see him square off against Daredevil or him square off against Namor, like that definitely like makes my heart ache a little bit.
Yeah.
But you know that the crew and the cast and everyone involved in the Black Panther universe in itself is going to do what they can to make it the most respectful and most honoring transition. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Totally agree. And at the end of the day, it's not that I don't care. It doesn't matter to me who takes on the mantle of Black Panther going forward after this movie. I'm fine if it's Shuri, if it's Riri, even though I'm pretty sure they're going to turn her into Ironheart because she has her show coming. To me, it doesn't matter who takes on the mantle.
M'Baku!
That would be great. I'm down for whoever it is, but
M'Baku?
M'Baku, yeah.
Or am I saying it wrong?
Close enough for me. Oh.
Bye, Matt.
It is 5% go.
Is that what he said earlier?
He said it was at 5% earlier. So just real quick, I thought of one thing that maybe might have helped Jesse with Doctor Strange, even though I'm not interested in trying to convince him because I know I'm not going to worry about that. But what if instead of the way that they did that turn where where Wanda says America and then Doctor Strange does the whole I didn't tell you her name. What if they did set it up that she wanted to help him find her and they had the buddy movie of the two of them up until halfway and then it turns the tables and through that experience there could have been those moments that you were looking for where here's Wanda where she's dabbling with the Darkhold too much or he's noticing she's acting a little differently or he's feeling that there's some spell casting going on that is unnatural or whatever while they're working together.
That
would have eased you
fine
into it
because it was the introducing her in this movie and then immediately the heel turn.
Yeah.
Like there was no preamble to it. It was just
Gotcha.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. All right, guys. I think that covers Thor, Love and Thunder, and a lot else. We lost Matt, so there's no point in going on. Unlike Thor, we do not have a daughter to replace him, so...
No!
Thanks, guys, for tuning in to another episode of OffWorld. Stay tuned. We got big news coming soon. But until then, thanks for joining us. Smash that like button. Subscribe, blah, 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 blah. You guys know the drill. Alright. Till next time. What do you guys want to do after this?
Well, let's plan out the next 15 years of Marvel, because we already started.
15 years. Alright, I'll meet you guys at Chili's on the way. Jesse hates
that would have
Chili's.
That would have been the way that a Wednesday night would have ended for me back in the
Friday
old days.
Night.
Or Saturday. Jesse, the other week when we got together, we were sitting there spitballing how this movie could have worked better, and we were going at least about an hour and a half to 2 hours down the rabbit hole of ideas. And it's like that's pretty depressing when a movie gives you that much on the table that you can play with and make something better than what you were given.
Yeah. So close.
So.
What are you gonna do when you're stuck with your friends inside your room? What are you gonna do when you're stuck with your friends with nothing to do? You're gonna go to OffWorld. Go to OffWorld. It's where you talk about movies that you've seen. Talk about movies in your dreams. You go to OffWorld. Yeah. Let's talk off.